They're prepared for any scenario, including potentially an encounter with Chinese ships.
At least 167 Chinese nationals tied to illegal pogo in Bamban, Tarlac got deported, while authorities look for more information on the town's mayor, Alice Guo.
And U.S. investors train their eye on the Philippines amid closer defense ties between the two countries. What exactly are they looking for? We'll be speaking to Ebb Hinchliffe, Executive Director at the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, about this in just a bit.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Preparations are well underway for the second Atin Ito convoy to Scarborough Shoal, which is set to depart tomorrow morning or in just a few hours and is expected to carry on until Friday.
Now, the mission will have three goals. One, to do the regatta, place the buoys, and distribute food and fuel supplies to fishermen and other frontliners.
But there is, of course, tension in the air as well after it was reported that China could block the civilian-led convoy. Maritime analyst Ray Powell of the monitoring initiative called Sea Light warned in an X post that China is sending, quote, at least 4 Coast Guard and 26 large maritime militia ships to block the Atin Ito convoy. Powell added that China seems determined to aggressively enforce its claim over the shoal by sending what is by far the largest blockade he said that he would ever have tracked at Scarborough.
Now, despite the reported increase in Chinese vessels currently monitoring Bajo de Masinloc, the second civilian supply mission is still on track. The Atin Ito coalition says their primary aim is to deliver supplies to Filipino fishermen, such as food and fuel.
Hindi po natin balak makipagpatintero sa mga Chinese vessels at kung sakali man po ay sabihin natin magbago ng onti yung ating itinerary at ang ating ruta, basta po ma-achieve natin yung tatlong mission na yon, success po tayo.
Around 255 people are participating in the civilian mission composed of volunteers, journalists, fishermen, and observers. They will board 5 commercial fishing vessels accompanied by 100 small fishing boats. The group says they've closely coordinated with the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea and the Philippine Coast Guard to ensure the safety of the convoy out at sea.
Lahat yon ng senaryo na yon ay pinaghahandaan natin kasama yung ating mga boat captains and always in coordination dun sa mga relevant agencies para masigurado na ligtas ang ating convoy, and lahat ng senaryo na ating na mapa, meron tayong kaakibat na mga risk mitigation strategies.
Our co-anchor Gretchen Ho is in fact going to be part of this mission to Scarborough Shoal, and we've managed to get her online before they set sail. Gretchen, can you tell us, kamusta? How are the preparations? Is everything set?
Riza, Regina, and Sean, is it the calm before the storm? Good weather greets the eve of the Atin Ito convoy, the second running of the civilian-led mission to the West Philippine Sea, this time heading over to the Scarborough Shoal off the waters of Masinloc, Zambales. The send-off dinner has just finished, has just wrapped up. Everybody's getting ready for a long journey ahead. And a while ago, before that, we heard some advocates and young leaders talking about the rights and the freedom of navigation in the country's EEZ. There was also a send-off mass praying for the safety of all and giving a blessing to the fishermen of Zambales. We are out here to civilianize and regularize access to our seas. That has been the constant message of the Atin Ito coalition, and that has been their response to claims by Chinese media saying that this sail is provocative action in the face of already tense situation over at Bajo de Masinloc. Now, putting it side by side, the Atin Ito coalition will be sending 5 large fishing boats accompanied by 100 smaller bangkas with over 200 civilians, as mentioned, volunteers, fishermen, local and foreign media, with international observers joining the convoy. And opposed to that, China is reportedly sending 4 Chinese Coast Guard vessels and 26 maritime militia. And just taking a look at the contrast of that, the Atin Ito coalition says it is quite clear as to who is the provocative party. Now, as you mentioned, there are three objectives to this: the Solidarity and Peace Regatta, installation of the symbolic markers, distribution of food and fuel to the fishermen. They are quite clear on that, on what they expect this mission to deliver and how they expect it to turn out. Hindi naman daw nila hinahangad na makarating sa Baho de Masinloc because they also want to ensure the safety of everyone. That's why emotions here are quite tempered. There is a little bit of nervousness, but overall, it seems that people have prepared well for the journey.
Well, Gretch, as you mentioned, this is going to be one of the largest, well, the largest convoy. We're talking about 255 people, and as we said, there is a reported blockade that you guys could be met with. How are the organizers ensuring the safety of all the participants of this mission?
Regina, the organizers have said that they have planned for every scenario out at sea. For example, they told us that if they start being shadowed by Chinese vessels, they will continue on with their journey. That is the instruction. If they are radio challenged, the commander of the convoy will answer. That's Rafaela David. Only one person will do that. If they are blocked by Chinese ships, they will evade. And at that point, they will wait for the cue of the Philippine Coast Guard as to when to turn back. They don't want it to reach at the water cannoning level. Iniiwasan talaga nila yon. Usually that happens around the territorial sea of Baho de Masinloc at 12 nautical miles. So nakikita naman natin dito yung prudence in terms of heading on over, because alam nga nila that this is a different terrain altogether because of the number of vessels in Baho de Masinloc. Also, they will be traversing from the 20 nautical mile point where they will be placing the buoys off of Masinloc to the Baho de Masinloc area. That's 100 nautical miles in total distance at night. So they would have to be very, very careful about all their moves out in the seas.
Right. Earlier, Gretch, you were saying that the mood is pretty mixed over there, a little bit of nervousness. But how have the organizers, kind of assured everyone over there to kind of take that away and take away the anxieties and all these what-ifs?
Sa totoo lang, tingin ko yung takot ay nanggagaling sa bukod sa yung hindi alam ng mga sasabay dito sa convoy na ito, kung paano sila matutulog, kung paano sila magsi-CR. Medyo hindi tayo sanay dyan, isa yun sa mga point of nervousness of the contingent here. But there are life vests, 1:1 for everyone here. There are doctors also on board, 1 doctor each for the 5 large bangkas. They will get ready for wounds, for seasickness, and for fractures even. So, handa naman medically, but syempre hindi pa rin matatanggal yung pangamba dahil marami dito ay hindi sanay. Ang nagtanong din tayo kung lumalangoy ba yung mga kasama natin, parang oo, pero hindi sila sigurado.
Okay, and nagdagdag ba sa kaba itong mga umiikot na videos from China that we have seen from the Global Times?
Yeah, well, specifically, you touched on this already. There's noise at the moment that this is being funded by U.S. Agencies. What was the talk like down there? What did the organizers have to say about it, and how did they address it?
Well, they cried fake news on this, Regina and Sean and Riza. They said this is another attempt to delegitimize the civilian action. And they also said na ang taas naman daw ng tingin sa kanila for China to say, or for Chinese media to say, that they are being funded by the U.S. and Philippine government. They have emphasized time and time again that this is civilian-led, and if government chooses to have it their way, they won't be sending or they won't be allowing. But hindi nga nila pwedeng gawin yun because nga they are emphasizing on the freedom of transport around our EEZ. They also acknowledge that this is a very political issue in itself. So hindi talaga maiiwasan that there are political figures, some of them are part of political parties, and they do promote raising the awareness of Filipinos, of the young Filipinos, about the scenario in the West Philippine Sea to be able to understand what EEZ means, what territorial sea means. So, kung sinabi na medyo mapolitika ito, hindi talaga maiiwasan yun. Yan ang sabi nila. So, Regina, Riza, and Sean, before I let you guys go, and before you let me go, I actually have some guests here with me who have been raring to make an appearance, and they are the stars of the civilian convoy. These are fishermen of Masinloc, Zambales. Hello, maghain naman kayo. Oo. Ayo, kanina pa sila dito. Talaga, ito si si Kuya Jan. Unang-una, no, tatanungin ko po sa inyo, anong halaga nitong civilian convoy na ito para sa mga mangingisda ng Masinloc?
Madam, sa amin, pinakamaganda po sa amin lahat ng mangingisda sa amin na kukumboy kami sa mga kasama na namin. Sama-sama.
Sabi kasi nila, hindi ba parang pagka may mga ganitong eksena, lalo pang humihirap ang buhay ninyo? Siyempre, ayaw naman namin mangyari yun, pero ano po masasabi ninyo?
Kaya nga po humihina ang isda sa amin dahil sa yung teritoryo na itong Scarborough. Kasi merong kami naririnig na malalakas na putok sa laot, kaya minsan natatakot po kami.
Ano po yun, yung malalakas sa putok?
Parang yun po, madam.
Para nagpapasabog sila doon, ano? Oo, ano pong, kayo po ba pinapayagan, kumbaga, hinahayaan, bangisda? O lagi po kayo nahihirapan pag pumapalaot?
Hindi naman kami, madam, pumupunta doon, madam. Dito lang po kami sa 20 miles. Opo.
Umiiwas na kayo. Okay, so dahil po ako'y hindi naman po sanay sa dagat, ano pong advice nyo sa akin? Saan ba ako magsi-CR? Paano ko matutulog?
Madali lang yan, ma'am. May CR naman po sa bangka yun. Opo, malaking bangka po yung gagamitin.
Huwag po kayong matakot, madam. Kasi po malaki po din yung sasakyan po ninyo.
Kasi siyempre hindi naman tayo hindi naman malakas ang alon.
Hindi naman po
Kakayanin ko naman.
Opo. Bakit naman po kasi umagang-umaga po naman hindi naman po tanghali. Kasi pag tanghali po, yun malakas na po yung hangin.
Ayun, so wag lang tayo doon basta makauwi na tayo agad. Hindi mukhang 2 araw ito no. Oo, sige. Maraming salamat at talagang ano bang mensahe po natin? Ano ba mensahe natin? Ano bang mensahe nitong convoy na to? Sabay-sabay tayo? Oo. Okay, 1, 2, 3. West Philippine Sea! Atin ito! Alright, back to you. Sean, Regina, Riza.
Thank you.
Okay, ingat kayong lahat.
Stay safe, Gretch. We know you've got your Starlink with you, so we're gonna try to connect with you tomorrow if you're not too seasick, that is.
I think she's ready for the seasickness as well. All right, safe sail to all y'all there. Gretchen Ho.
Thank you. Now, meanwhile, some 167 Chinese nationals working at an illegal Pogo Hub in Bamban, Tarlac were deported today. These 4 nationals were working for a company named Zun Yuan Technology. They weren't able to present working visas and other immigration documents when authorities searched the hub. The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission said another 44 Chinese nationals will be deported soon. The agency is also hoping to meet with counterparts from China to discuss issues on POGOs. The Bureau of Immigration, on the other hand, sees no irregularities when it comes to the issuance of student visas to foreigners. The Bureau said 24,000 foreign nationals were issued student visas last year, 16,000 of whom were Chinese nationals.
Tingnan po natin on the ground yung mga na-issue po na visa. Wala naman po tayong nakitang kakaiba or anomalya po. We check po kung sila ay nag-aaral talaga dito sa Pilipinas. Check their derogatory records kung itong mga ito ay may mga kaso or mga fugitives from justice. Doon po sa extensions ng kanilang visas, tinitingnan po natin yung grades nila doon sa past 2 semesters kung semestral po or yung trimesters po.
Now tying that deportation report to the case of Bamban Mayor Alice Guo, authorities say they see no reason to issue a lookout bulletin for the embattled local chief executive, at least not just yet.
Sa ngayon po, hindi pa po natin siya binabantayan. In as much as pinahanda pa po natin yung asunto laban sa kanya kung meron po sapat na ebidensya. Pero yun nga po, naglabas na po ng resulta yung JLG Task Force Bamban at nakalagay doon sa kanilang investigasyon na mayroong pananagutan si Mayora for administrative malpiasan.
Mayor Guo continues to raise concerns about her legal status. The Immigration Bureau says they are willing to hand over their records on Guo if subpoenaed. The COMELEC has provided the Senate with copies of Guo's certificate of candidacy and her statement of contributions and expenditures.
Sa Certificate of Candidacy, may declaration doon, I am a citizen of the Philippines. Yan po ay pinanumpaan niya. Kung mapapatunayan na hindi naman pala talaga siya Filipino citizen, ay siya po ay pwedeng maging liable o makasuhan ng perjury. Pero again, hindi po nire-require ng ating batas na magsasubmit ng dagdag na dokumento para lang patunayan na ikaw ay of age, wala pong birth certificate requirement, para lang patunayan na ikaw ay Filipino citizen. Ang COMELEC po ay ministerial ang duty namin. Ano po ibig sabihin? Wala po kaming karapatan na tumanggi sa pinafile na certificates of candidacy. Kahit pa nga maaaring mali ang deklarasyon o nagsisinungaling.
We're going to pause for a quick one right now, but right after that, we will be speaking with Ebb Hinchliffe, Executive Director of the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, about the high-level Indo-Pacific Business Forum coming up next week and what's next for U.S.-Philippine trade ties. Stay tuned.
You're watching the big story here on One News.
Okay, I'm gonna start off this block with a spot of bad news as Meralco has announced an increase in power rates for this month. And what with the extreme heat, consumers are trying to find ways around this. Shaila Francisco with the rest of that story.
Anador's family used to only turn on the aircon at their home when they're about to sleep at night. But because of the extreme heat, they now turn it on from noontime onwards. Electric fans are also turned on to cool the house even more. Ana explains the heat has taken its toll on her kids. To try to cut consumption, the family bought a new inverter aircon and some clip-on fans, especially as their Meralco bill has doubled.
Di baling magbayad na lang tayo ng mataas na bill kesa sa ospital hassle. Ang problem ko, pag ganyan na tag-init, nagkakaroon ako ng mga bungang araw pero malala.
Power rates typically climb during the dry season due to higher demand. In fact, for this month, Meralco has announced an upward rate adjustment of 46 centavos per kilowatt hour. That's equivalent to a 92 to 231 peso increase in consumers' bills, depending on consumption. Meralco attributes this to higher generation charges or the cost of producing electricity. Back in April, the demand for electricity climbed to over 2,000 megawatts. Power supply is thin, causing the Luzon grid to suffer 3 yellow alerts and 5 red alerts in the month of April.
Kinailangan namin kumuha ng mas marami sa merkado. As you know, the supply situation in April was challenged. It only goes to show us that consumers opt to utilize cooling devices, lalo na itong mga air conditioning units, itong nagdaang April supply month. 1,000 air conditioning units sold per day.
Meralco says power rates could increase again next month if demand continues to climb. And that appears to be the case because just today the Luzon grid has been placed under yellow alert again due to thinning reserves. The grid's yellow alert status is in place for up to 6 hours. Yellow alert has also been issued over the Visayas grid, also effective for 6 hours today. Meralco believes, though, that power rates could be eased through the Energy Regulatory Commission's order last month for the power spot market in Luzon and Visayas to suspend operations whenever these grids are placed under red alert. Shaila Francisco, WR1 News.
Well, to help solve some of these power issues, the U.S. and Japan recently committed to help the Philippines advance its civil nuclear energy program. And on the whole, economic cooperation between the Philippines and the U.S. has ramped up recently. No one knows that better than Ebb Hinchliffe. He's the executive director at the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, and he is live with us in studio tonight. Ebb, thanks to making your way all the way here from Makati.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always I'm always enjoy talking about the Philippine economy, the Philippines, the business trade, business climate between the two countries. So really appreciate your invite. I'm glad I'm here.
Business is well, it's been busy for you guys, right?
Yeah.
There's been a number of high-level visits, and there's another one coming up next week. It's called the Indo-Pacific Business Forum. We are expecting some 500 delegates across various sectors. First off, this has never been held in the Philippines before. Talk us through the significance of that.
Well, it's very significant the fact that it's in the Philippines. But back to your original statement about the number of visits. I mean, it's been unbelievable since the Marcos administration started. I mean, we've had the Vice President here, you've had the Secretary of State, then of course in March we had the Secretary of Commerce here. It's just been nonstop. President Marcos went to U.S., to New York City for the United Nations meeting, then he went to San Francisco, then he went to Washington, D.C. I mean, this has been nonstop. It's been fantastic, the deal. We had the trade mission in March, 11-12 with the Secretary. It was the first presidential trade mission. It's hard to believe that however many years it's been with the United States and Philippines, this is the first time the president sent a trade mission over. It was a delegation of about 22. I was fortunate enough to meet both them and the secretary, and it was extremely beneficial. It allowed us to showcase what we can do here in the Philippines. And now then, as you mentioned, we have the Indo-Pacific Business Forum coming up on May 21. And this is just another example of being able to showcase the Philippines. The significance, I was at the one last year. I've been to several of these in different countries. It's an honor and a really tough decision where to place this event. And for the Philippines to be chosen for this event means that somebody up top made the decision, we're going to do it in the Philippines. And I think that all this we've talked about, the visit with President Marcos, the visits with the team coming this way, the American government people coming here, also the business trade, it's just, that's why the significance of having it in Manila is not small. It means that somebody's really paying attention, wanting to
Despite
continue.
despite the logistical challenges at that of holding a large conference here in the Philippines, right?
Yep. But it's good.
What the big takeaway? So you mentioned Secretary Gina Raimondo's visit. The big takeaway from that was actually she announced $1 billion in investments to the Philippines over a number of years. What are we looking at specifically? Break it down for us.
There's several. When I had the conversation with her, it was dealing with energy. It was dealing with connectivity. It was dealing with digitalization. A lot of it was the semiconductor manufacturing. She mentioned some of that. The $1 billion is, in my opinion, underestimated. That's just the beginning. Of course, you will not see $1 billion investment tomorrow. Those things take quite a while to develop. But these were quite true. This is one of the few times I've seen investors say, I'm going this much, and this much, and it's actually been in writing and done, versus I'm going to pledge.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So these aren't just pledges.
These are more than pledges. Not all of them, I guess, are done deals, but as far as I know, and again, I think those are underestimated. I would hope over the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see that at least double or triple.
How do we fit in the whole semicon war between the United States and China? So-called semicon war. A lot of people are saying there's a lot of opportunity for the Philippines somewhere in that chain. Where is it? Do you see where it is? Ebb?
Yeah, I think I don't like to use the word Silicon
Valley.
semiconductor battle or war.
Maybe not a war.
Nobody wins a trade
Right.
war.
Maybe not a war, but Secretary Raimondo did say that she thinks the U.S. has concentrated its supply chain, chip supply chain, in too few countries. So now, if we were trying to find our place in that, what would we do?
I think I think there's a really bright, shining edge to this dark cloud, silver lining. I actually worked in the semiconductor industry for many, many years. I worked with Texas Instruments and such. So I had in Taiwan, for example, the silver lining to me is the fact that most semiconductor companies around the world are doing Taiwan +1. They're never going to give up on Taiwan. That's the heart of the semiconductor industry in the world. They're going to continue to expand in Taiwan, but they're looking for Taiwan +1.
Okay, so they'll diversify to another spot.
To another spot, so that if we have another COVID or another supply chain interruption, at least they're better for the future. And so that sets very well for the Philippines. We have 3 huge American semiconductor companies in this place. I know one of them, Texas Instruments, has announced plans to expand both their facility in Clark and in Subic. A couple of the other semiconductors are also discussing and looking into the probability of expanding here in the Philippines. This is good news. You know, this is something that's exciting that I think comes out of it. So, but it's a serious matter. We don't want. You know, I wish that the 2 countries could, China and the U.S. would find a better way to communicate and resolve this, because it's not healthy for the world economy, I don't think. But overall, I mean, there is a silver lining there that I think the Philippines will benefit from it.
Okay, there's also this concept called the Luzon Economic Corridor, and that came out of the trilateral summit in Washington between the U.S., Japan, and the Philippines. What do you know about the Luzon Economic Corridor, and what can you tell us about it?
Well, first of all, let's just back up and talk about the
Which
to me,
in
that's just
itself
great.
is another landmark
It's a
event.
whole landmark. When the Biden administration had the wisdom to put the 3 countries together and say, look, we got a common thing to talk about. And so when you put Japan, the United States, and the Philippines all into the room together and talk about, it was amazing. And of course, the hot topic came out of it was this north-south economic corridor. The beginning of that talk was several years ago, that they would build the rail from from Subic to Clark. And I had to question mark. I didn't quite understand, because of proximity was very close. Why don't you put it on the truck and just ship it over there?
Right.
Why would you need a rail? But then I've been educated. I learned more about it. We had a good discussion a few weeks back. It seems that the current north-south corridor is to Clark, or Subic to Clark, Clark to maybe Northport, Northport to Batangas. And I went, that's interesting as well. Why don't you just, if you're going to Calabarzon, you ship it to to Batangas. If you're NCR, maybe slightly south, slightly north, NCR, Northport. And then if you're going North Luzon, Clark, Subic, whatever, you put it into Subic. Then it become clear. What really is happening is the supply chain, the supply ships, want to make one stop. They can now have shipments going to Calabarzon, to Metro Manila, NCR, and North Luzon, and they make one stop, whether it be Subic, and they put it on the rail, it can go all the way to Batangas.
Right.
Or Batangas, they can now, the ship does no longer have to go Clark, or Subic, Northport, Batangas, or
Right.
Batangas. They can make one stop, and it really makes sense. And all along this corridor will be the economic, where you got the growth, the job creations. So let's not think the economic side of it. One other thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to add, that's Clark New City. Now, we're talking about manufacturing or large areas. Those companies need two things for sure. They need a large space, 1 hectare, 2 hectares, 3 hectares, 4 hectares, and
Power.
they need, and power, that's number 3, yeah. But they have that in Clark, it's really good. I've been up there and visited. But what they also need is access to a port. So when I met with Secretary Go, he explained, the Biden administration, the Marcos administration is really keen to make sure that that north-south corridor rail line has a spur going to Clark New City. Clark New City has 9,450 hectares.
It's massive.
It's massive. And it's very modern. It's really,
Right.
really good shape. It's nice, beautiful facilities. And so companies wanting to invest in the Philippines should take a very good look. If you, not to say that Calabarzon is full or something, but they're they're a little more expensive, land's more expensive. They don't have quite the size needed for some of this.
Right.
So Clark New City to me is key, and it plays right into this north-south corridor.
Did they tell you when this whole, all the infra around that area would start? Is there a timeline for that project?
It's not going to take long. Once you get, it's got to happen during the first term of, or I would say under Marcos' administration by 2028, have it well underway.
Yeah.
So.
The U.S. presidential elections is in a few months, in November. You think that's going to make a change, or has an effect on the economic ties that we have with the United States?
AmCham's nonpartisan. We don't play politics, whether it's in the Philippines or in the U.S. It would be not too wise. But the main thing we want and hope for is that this movement that we were seeing in the last couple of years, that economic situation continues regardless who wins the election. AmCham has worked, we're 120 years old. We've
Here
worked
for
with
a
every
while.
120 years, every administration we've worked with,
Literally.
except for the Japanese during World War II, but we've worked with every one of them, and we'll continue no matter who wins November, it'll continue. We just want this economic relationship that's been developed now in the last 2 years, we want that to continue.
Are there investors that are taking a wait-and-see approach to this, particularly since President Biden and President Trump have very different approaches to Southeast Asia? President Biden, as you underscored, has made a big effort to embrace the region, whereas President Trump has turned the country more insular, more inward-looking. So as you talk to these investors, is there anyone that's sitting on the sidelines just waiting to see what happens?
Not yet. The investment, we're talking, $500 million or something. People that are going to put that much money in don't necessarily got a timeline or care about who's in Washington or what. It's a long-term investment. You got to look and see what your return on the investment is going to be, what are the conditions to it. So if you look at issues like the West Philippine Sea and what's going on out there, some people say, well, is that an issue for investors? Not so far. It's a serious issue. Everybody's concerned about it. But for investment-wise, it's really not such, it's too long-term. They're looking at big investments. They do their due diligence. They look at what the geopolitical risk and weighs all of that and puts it into it. And so I don't think right now it's
It's
not
all
an
about
issue.
the returns.
Yeah, and right now it's all about the return. And so right now I don't know of any investors just wait and see for the elections or any of the other items. So.
Okay, and lastly, what kind of interest have we generated with investors? Are there any new investors who perhaps never considered the Philippines before, but now they do? And what sectors are these businesses in exactly when they look at the Philippines and say, hey, maybe we could set up something over there?
There's several areas that I see. Probably the first and foremost is renewable energy. Now that the ruling was that foreign ownership of renewables. Prior to that, every time the sun passed over the Philippines, Philippine government owned the sun. Every time the wind blew across the Philippine Islands, the Philippine government owned it. And that meant foreigners could only own 40%. Now, who in the world is going to invest $1 billion and only own 40% of it on very expensive investment? So when it's now opened up to 100% foreign investment, we're really seeing that's one area that's really good. Another one would be critical minerals, the mining sector.
Right.
It's never been, America's never really had too big an impact in the mining in the Philippines, but with the e-vehicles, the batteries, the nickel, the critical minerals that all go into that, with Philippines being a huge supplier of that, then I'm seeing a huge interest now in critical minerals. Those are a couple of areas. Manufacturing, I mean, SEPI, if you look at SEPI, talk to them. Semiconductors
we
going
talked
to...
to Dan.
Talk with the SEPI. Their exports for semiconductors, their export are going up.
Dan is trying to get some money out of the CHIPS Act.
And the CHIP Act.
That's what he said when he was here.
The CHIP Act, same thing with Raimundo. The CHIP Act's not going to help you build a factory or anything. What it will, because that supposedly is going to be done to help American companies build American factories. But what it does is it supplies workforce training, it does pays for research, development, all those areas can be. So both Raimundo and Undersecretary Hernandez, when he was here, all of them brought that up with me and said, let's utilize the Philippines with the CHIP Act in the Philippines. So it's a great opportunity. Thanks for mentioning that.
And what about AI? How do we figure in that conversation? Is there any opportunity here to be part of that supply chain?
It's it's a hot topic with everybody.
Right.
I think it's the retraining, this thing is going to go on in the next few years because, I mean, AI is definitely going to change the way everybody lives, but especially in the market. If you look at your IBPAP here, they're rebranding. I mean, they're doing things because of it. I find it exciting. I use Microsoft Copilot every day. I think it scares me, but it's really exciting what the possibilities are. And I think coming out of the pandemic, the Philippines came out much better on the digitalization and the readiness for AI and its impact than maybe some of the other competing countries.
Just a brief final word on BPO, since you already brought up the business process outsourcing sector, which is so big here in the Philippines. We have a lot of U.S. clients, so to speak, and investors. Are they planning to stay?
No, definitely. There's growing. I mean,
growing?
If maybe you better talk to Jack Madrid with IBPAP instead of Ebb about that. But
well, tell him that you recommended we talk to him, so he can come over.
Okay, we'll do that. Jack's a great guy, and you'll enjoy it. But no, there's no doubt that there's going to be major changes in the next decade in that industry. But they understand that. They're moving towards that. It's the retraining, the re-educating. You're going to have different people doing different jobs. They just need retraining.
It's not going to get wiped out, in short.
I see it as an opportunity, not as a threat. So.
Okay. Can we
fair enough.
Take some comfort there?
We are going to.
I mean, come on, if I can use AI, anybody can.
It's just a time for upskilling.
Upskilling.
Yeah,
that's the buzzword.
That's what they all say.
I didn't want to use the buzzword.
Right. That goes for technology like AI. Same goes for technology for semiconductor, right? Which we're trying to be competitive in, more competitive in at least. Okay, we're gonna have to leave that there for tonight. Thanks so much for all your
Thank you for having me.
insights.
I've enjoyed the conversation.
Ebb Hinchliffe, he's the executive director at the AmCham Philippines.
A quick break for now. Right after that, The Manila International Airport Authority vows to fix broken or faulty escalators at the NAIA by September after senators question delays in repairs. The details when the big story returns. Keep it here.
The many issues at Philippine airports that were tackled by the Senate Committee on Public Services today. Camille Samonte has the details.
Naawa ako sa mga senior citizens because puno yung elevator. There's only one elevator, right? Goes up and down. So they have to drag their bag down to the ground with such a high level. And I don't understand why.
In today's hearing of the Senate Committee on Public Services, Senate President Mig Zubiri presented this video showing broken escalators at the NAIA Terminal 3. Zubiri notes that passengers, including senior citizens, are forced to use the stairs while carrying heavy bags.
Isa lamang po yan. You know the escalator from NAIA 3 when you go down? It's been busted for the last 5 months, I think.
The Senate panel seeks to find out the current state of the airports in the country, and in today's hearing, the Manila International Airport Authority admitted that some of the elevators and escalators at NAIA Terminals 2 and 3 are already unserviceable. The MIA explains that they've already taken up the issue to their contractor Mitsubishi, but they experienced delays in the delivery of spare parts.
Ayusin na po namin yun. Kasi nakikita ko, naramdaman ko rin po yun. Ang hirap po bumaba doon.
You notice it because there's only one. It's the only one way to go down. Either the elevator or that stairs or that escalator. It's a bottleneck there. I think that's also a design flaw of that NAIA 3.
The MIA targets to fix the broken escalators and elevators by September or before the airport is turned over to the private concessionaire, a consortium led by San Miguel Corporation. But it's not just NAIA that is facing problems. Even airports in the provinces are inconveniencing travelers. At the Laguindingan Airport, there are almost no seats left for passengers. Even the comfort rooms are dirty and the floors muddy.
Ang sikip ng airport, my wife takes that every week to go home. I take it once in a while and I see the airports pagdating doon, punong-puno ng tao. Yung mga foreigners, Madam Secretary, the foreigners are standing.
Iloilo Mayor Jerry Treñas says that's also the situation in their airport. Though they have been given funds to fix issues, Treñas says they still cannot use these funds as they still need a memorandum of agreement with the Transportation Department and the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. That's why Treñas asks, why aren't these PPPs pursued?
There are interested parties for this airport. If government cannot spend for this, we can go PPP. It's a mode allowed under the law.
That's also the question of some senators.
I don't know what's taking so long for this to be decided because it feels like obviously the government can't handle all of this. So what is hindering us from granting these PPP projects to a capable conglomerate that can deliver?
The DOTR explains there are delays experienced due to the new PPP code release on April 6, but the agency says negotiations are already ongoing. The Transportation Department adds that they have already scheduled repairs for broken facilities in the airports. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Following the creation of a human rights super body by President Bongbong Marcos, the question now is, what happens to the Commission on Human Rights? Maricel Halili has the answer for that in her report.
In the midst of the ongoing investigation by the International Criminal Court into the Duterte administration's bloody drug war, President Bongbong Marcos has established a, quote, super body to focus on protecting human rights in the Philippines. Under the authority of Administrative Order Number 22, which establishes the Special Committee on Human Rights Coordination, the said committee will be led by the Executive Secretary as the chairperson. The Secretary of the Justice Department will serve as the co-chairperson. Members of the committee will include the Secretaries of DFA and DILG.
Ang pangunahing mandato ng Special Committee on Human Rights Coordination ay para magkaroon ng focused, dedicated at rationalized na human rights promotion and protection ng ating pamahalaan. Yung kasing nakaraan, kanya-kanya ang mga programa at proyekto ng mga iba't ibang ahensya ng ating gobyerno at sobrang magulo.
The super body also aims to strengthen investigations into human rights violations. Its mandate also includes gathering data, collaborating with the private sector, establishing mechanisms for implementing and reporting human rights issues, and promoting a human rights approach in the fight against illegal drugs and terrorism. The DOJ, though, clarified that the committee was not formed to conduct an investigation into the deaths during the Duterte administration's drug war. They emphasized that it is not a parallel investigation to that of the ICC.
Objektibo nito ay para sa future application to make sure na yung compliance natin sa human rights, sa law enforcement, sa criminal justice and sa lahat ng pulisiya ng ating gobyerno.
The Commission on Human Rights, meanwhile, will continue its mandate despite the formation of the new committee. The CHR is, after all, an independent body not under the jurisdiction of the Executive Department. They also assured that they are ready to support the committee if needed.
Pwede ho kaming pumasok maging parte nitong committee na to as observer dahil yan naman din po ang mandato namin na merong bridging role as a national human rights institution. We provide technical assistance or policy advisory to concerned agencies of the government.
Several lawmakers from the Senate and House of Representatives have welcomed the creation of the Human Rights Super Body. House Assistant Majority Leader Raul Angelo Bungalon said that the creation of the special committee is a positive development. Senator Francis Escudero hopes that the intent and provisions of this issuance will be faithfully executed down the line. He added that it is crucial not only for addressing human rights issues related to the previous Marcos regime, but also for addressing concerns from the previous administration and the entire country. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
All right, we have almost run out of time, but before we go, our big picture tonight is a little bit different than usual. It is former Senator Antonio Trillanes. And this is a photo of him holding a complaint filed against former presidential spokesman Harry Roque, SMNI personalities, and pro-Duterte vloggers. Trillanes said he decided to take legal action after, quote, persistent online attacks and false accusations against him, including allegations that he gave away Scarborough Shoal to China during his back-channel talks in 2012.
We have had him on the show, and he's talked about how he's had to correct it a number of times, the myth that he was the one who lost Scarborough Shoal in 2012.
I guess this goes to show where, you know, like sometimes when a story goes out and it has been told and passed around enough times, it kind of starts sticking as what people remember.
Right. Well, at least he's filed it, and let's see where that
On
goes.
the day,
you know?
on the eve of the second civilian mission to the
right.
Scarborough Shoal, I wonder if there's any significance to that. But
I guess we will find out as the days go by. But for tonight, that's it from us here at The Big Story.